in this segment, what we want to look at is significant figures. All right, so first things first, all digits are significant except 0, which may or may not be significant. So these digits are significant all the time. The only digit that we wonder about, it may not be significant, is a 0. So a 0 may be significant, and there are times when it may not be significant. So outside of 0, all other digits are significant. All right, so we want to make sure of that. Another thing that we want to make sure of is the first significant figure will never be a 0. So if I see 125, then we're talking about this would be 3 significant figures that I'm looking for. I may just write SF. 3 significant figures I'm looking at. Let us say I'm looking at 0.05617. Then, because these zeros are at the front, I normally call them leading zeros. Leading zeros are never significant. So this would be where my first significant figure starts, at the 5. So the first, the second, the third, and the fourth. So here it is, I have 4 significant figures right there. Now, there are some issues like, what if we have 5,700? Another thing is that zeros at the back are not significant if there is no decimal point in the mix. So there is no decimal point in the mix. These zeros at the back, I call them trailing zeros. So they're like trailing. So trailing zeros are never significant. So I only have 2 significant figures right here. Sometimes people might say, then why is it that if I take off the 0, it changes the value? Yes, it changes the value. But in terms of the concept of what a significant figure is, trailing zeros at the back are not significant unless there is a decimal point. So let us look on 2 situations. One, if I have like a 5041, because this 0 is between other significant figures, then automatically I would have 4 significant figures here, because when zeros are between other significant figures, then they become significant. You understand? They become significant when they are placed between other significant figures. So this 0 is now significant, which would have made this 1, 2, 3, 4 significant figures. All right, let's look back on this case. When we had the 5700, we agreed that this is 4 significant figures. But if I should put a decimal point here, there is a rule with the decimal point. The decimal point actually will make these zeros that are trailing significant. So now I'm looking at 4 significant figures because this decimal point would have made it 4 significant figures. So these zeros are now significant because of the decimal point. And sometimes the logic behind it is like this. This is all about measurement. And if somebody sent this measurement to me and they said, okay, the measurement that I got was 570.0. The fact that they took the time to write 570.0 would have meant that this idea from whoever was writing up the measurement saw this necessary. That means it is significant. So when I'm looking at significant figures, I'm looking at the details from the fact that I wasn't the one who prepared the thing and I got it from somebody else. So if they took the time out to say 570.0, then it is significant. So all of these are significant figures. Even if we have 0.5700, this 0 is not significant because leading zeros are never significant. However, these two zeros will not be significant because of the decimal point. So here's the conclusion. When there's a decimal point in the figure and I have started counting significant figures, every single thing will be significant after that. Let me repeat. When there is a decimal point in my figure, anywhere, the moment I have started to count significant figures, I cannot stop counting significant figures. For example, if I have a 5, 0, and 1, 0, one significant figure, 2, then there's a decimal point, everything else is significant. This becomes 4 significant figures. Now, if you look at this case here, I never started counting significant figures when I encountered this 0, because the first significant figure can never be a 0. So the decimal point is now here. I passed it and I started counting. Everything else would be significant. I started counting significant figures, then I encountered the decimal point. Everything else after that is significant. Basically, that's the idea surrounding the significant figures and stuff like that. Just to enjoy.